in a coffee shop in a city, which is every coffee shop in every city on a day, which is every day. Hello, friends, and welcome to the 21st episode of Barista Unfiltered, a podcast dedicated to the life and times of baristas. They tell us what's brewing in their lives and work in this free-flowing and unfiltered podcast. I'm Jodie Lee.
Oh,
and I'm Austin Miller.
And I'm Cam.
Saul.
She's very enthusiastic.
She's so enthusiastic. Austin and I are your hosts. Cam is our guest, and we're so glad that you're here. Cam Saal is her last name. She is a barista that I know from Otis in Lafayette, Colorado, and she has some fabulous curly red hair. You want to jump on YouTube to see this. And her beautiful red hair goes along with her bright, warm personality that I get to see a couple times a week early in the morning. So welcome to the podcast, friend.
Thank you.
I'm
welcomed.
Thank you for joining us. So tell us what kind of coffee you had this morning.
Well, this morning I didn't have very much coffee, but I did make myself, this is embarrassing, I made myself this really, really sugary, I was in the mood for like replicating some gas station coffee. So I put a bunch of syrup in my coffee, and then I put a bunch of steamed milk in, and I made it taste exactly like that. So I'm being a fake barista right now. But
so which flavor were you emulating? Was it like that French vanilla, like old school,
It was like the hazelnut French vanilla type thing. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Oh yeah. So you mix like vanilla syrup with hazelnut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is that a bad thing to do? I mean, what makes that a coffee shop thing?
Well, if you're at a gas station, it's a lovely thing to do because the coffee is shite. So you got to add something. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you get the urge for that. I understand.
Yeah. I was feeling it today.
So what you mean by that is that you're just overly sugaring the coffee with a blend of sugars.
Yeah.
But the coffee wasn't bad.
Oh no, the coffee itself was great, but that was the embarrassing thing about it, was that I was ruining the coffee with the sugar.
You were just after the.
But is it really ruining coffee? I mean, you eat coffee ice cream, and sometimes you get like fancy, So I mean, it's it's just adorning it.
That's.
Or using it as an ingredient. Did you use like fancy vanilla syrup, or was it just like kind of like your standard fare?
It was we make our own syrups in house, so I was using our handmade syrups. Yeah, so I guess it was kind of a tier above.
I got no problem with that. This sounds great. I kind of want
this. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It had nothing to do with gas station coffee, because nothing at Otis is disgusting.
That's true.
They care too much about every piece of the process.
Oh man.
Oh my god! If you want to go the full hipster though, you could actually title it the gas station coffee and make it a specialized drink.
Yeah.
Nail down that flavor, but make it fancy and sell it for $5, $6. You're good.
$5, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And maybe you should spell it Cawfee, coffee.
Coffee.
Or coffee, depending on where you're from.
Coffee.
Nice.
Some nice coffee. I love that.
Well, cool. Austin, what did you have today? I mean, it's afternoon. We're recording in the afternoon for all.
It's winter time, and most of our recordings have been in the winter time, so it may seem kind of boring, but every day I'm having like a giant 20-ounce cup of hot brew, which is what I tend to do in the winter time. And then as we get towards the summer, I'll probably actually switch it up. And then I'll usually drink my cortado or whatever. But when it's cold out, I want like a big hot cup of coffee.
You want one that will last hours.
Yeah. Well, yeah, at least an hour.
Yeah. And you don't put sugar in yours?
No, I don't. I mean, I do if I'm making like certain things, but if I'm just drinking like black brewed coffee, no, then I don't put any sugar or anything like that in it.
Well, I'm so excited to tell you what I had for coffee this morning.
What did you have? Yes.
I love that oat milk, but I love it exclusively by that company, Oatly. And they were having trouble at Otis getting a hold of that Oatly. They were getting the Pacific or Pacifica?
It was Pacific.
Pacific. Yeah. It's a little too watery for me. It tastes like almond milk. I don't like it. Mm-hmm. So now they're somehow like the magic has returned and we have Oatly. And so I've been having that every morning. And Cam poured my coffee this morning.
Oh, it's true.
It was so good.
Oh, That's good to
It
hear.
was so good. And she handed it to me apologetically. She was like, I can't make a pretty design with this. And I was like, first of all, it's beautiful.
Oh.
Secondly, it's in my hands, which is the best thing ever. And it was so like silky smooth and delicious that she was underselling herself like she always does.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we're going to get into some of that.
And just to stipulate, we're not getting paid by Oatly, but we're not opposed to it either. So if you
That's true, Oatly. If you want to support our podcast, we'd love to have a sponsor.
Yeah.
Any of you who wants to support the podcast for a plug, I think we're game for that. Just putting it out there. Okay, so you're currently a barista at Otis, like a lot of baristas we've featured on this show. Tell us how you got your job there and if it's your first barista job.
It is my second barista job. So I was doing freelance work. I'm an illustrator, so I was doing freelance work last a little more than a year ago now, so I recently moved from Minneapolis, and by recently I mean like a year and a half ago at this point. But I was working at Spy House Coffee in Minneapolis, which is super good, and they gave me all my training, and it's fantastic. I know so much information now that I wouldn't have known had I not trained there. But so there was a grace period where I just was doing freelance work after quitting there and moving back to Colorado. And in the time I worked at Otis. So I applied to work at Otis back when it was proper still. But I started off as a customer there because I would just go there to do my freelance work. And I really liked the environment and my now coworkers. So it was just a good vibe. And then I applied because I needed a job that was more steady income than my freelance work. And now
Did you find it kind of trippy? Like you've been going into this place for a little while and it's you're a customer there and then all of a sudden you're like welcome behind the counter and you're seeing it from the other side. Is that like kind of a weird feeling the first day?
Yeah, it was definitely there was definitely some of that. It was very bizarre, I think, going around the counter the first time. Just because it's a completely different vibe from being on the customer side than being on the other side. And now before it kind of feels like this space that's like, I don't know, that's going to sound foolish, but I was going to say it's like this space you inhabit in a different way than when you're a customer. I don't know how to word this, but it feels a lot more like home now than it did before, whereas before it just felt like an office space almost. So
you have more ownership of the space now.
Exactly.
You're more responsible for creating the thing that you were enjoying before.
Yes.
Yeah. That's cool. And if you think of other ways to describe that change as we're going along, just like stop us and say, but I figured it out. This is it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Austin, have you ever been a customer somewhere and then turned into an employee?
Yeah. I mean, Spikes, I was a customer there for 4 years. And so when I first went behind the counter and all these people that were sort of like over the counter acquaintances, like all of a sudden became my coworker, it was like a weird feeling for the first like week or so, like walking around and like, I don't know, it was just different, than if you applied somewhere cold and you hadn't really been a customer there before, because your relationship with these people kind of like changes over the course of one day.
They start hazing you.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. They don't have to be, they excuse my language, but they don't have to be kissing your ass anymore.
Yeah. They don't have to be polite.
Right. Now they're your boss.
So who hired you, Cam? Who was the boss back then?
It was Jamie. So when So when I interviewed, both Jake, our roaster, and Jamie interviewed me. And it was a very good interview. I interview really well. I've never had a bad interview in my life. And every time I've interviewed, I've gotten the job. So that sounds really arrogant. But every job I've applied to and interviewed for, I interview really good. So
we're seeing some of that right now.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We're kind of interviewing you.
A little bit. A wee bit. But we just kind of like sat down and had a conversation, which was really nice. So it wasn't really like an interview. It was kind of like this, where it's just talking. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated that experience. And I think it is, for me, when it's an organic conversation like that, it's really easy to kind of bounce off the other person and feel comfortable. So
Yeah, and Jake and Jamie, we've had Jake the roaster on our show. Jamie is just as nice and easygoing as Jake is. So you would imagine the two of them interviewing you would just be like, oh, hey, we're going to make some friendships today.
Well, it was so funny because like at the time I was like, oh my God, the roaster is interviewing me. And like the roaster at Spy House, he's like really intense almost. He's great. But I was very intimidated by him when I worked there. So when I first met Jake, I was like very intimidated, like, oh my God, this is the roaster.
And then
I would imagine that the roaster is kind of like the same sort of reputation as like a chef in the kitchen. You know, the chef is usually known for like kind of slinging stuff around, maybe like being a little salty.
Yeah. I've never seen Jake be salty. I'm not sure he hasn't.
Did you say salty or saucy?
Salty.
Either one. I mean, depending
I
on.
heard saucy.
Yeah. I said salty, but saucy kind of works too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
No pun intended, right?
But yeah, no, Jake is like, he's very good. He's very easygoing. He's easy to talk to, and he really cares about what he does. So it makes it really easy for me, who also cares about what I do, to talk to. Which is what you happen when you have people who care about what they do talking, I guess. So,
and I feel like that's it's hard to draw a common denominator among all the people at Otis, but if you have to delve for one, I think it's that they are all very particular about what they're doing. They care deeply. So there's that going on at every level, from, you know, the roaster to the manager to the owner to I'm now in communication with their outreach coordinator for the community, and they're all very deeply committed to making this thing work. And it's a great coffee shop. Next time you're in town, Austin, we got to take you over there.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can see it all. Okay. Well, I'm going to go out there on a limb and say to Cam, I sense that you're in school.
I'm not.
I'm wrong.
I graduated from school back in 2016, and that was when I was still living in Minneapolis.
It was recent.
2016? That's like
kind of
3 years ago.
Listen, when you're 44, that's pretty recent.
Yesterday.
I guess that's true. That's true.
In Trump years, that's an eternity, though.
Oh my God.
Oof.
Okay, so go back. You graduated in 2016.
Yeah.
With a degree in illustration, or?
No, actually, I went to the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. So I went with the intent to be an animation major. And then I just got really confused the entire time I was there. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I jumped around to like 5 different majors. And then I finally settled on web and multimedia because I had a really good teacher. And in having a good teacher, I wanted to be really good at that one thing, which is kind of funny because I didn't vibe with the animation teachers very much at that school. So I don't know, I didn't really feel a kinship with my classmates either. So it just kind of felt very displacing to be in this animation major when I was around people I didn't really get along with, both in teachers and students. So
when you were in animation, what did you see as your big career goal at the end of that? Or like, what were you aiming for?
Well, my goal there, and my goal still with career-wise, is that I eventually want to be a storyboard artist on an children's cartoons, I think, or anything really. But that was kind of my intent because I like the vibe of cartoons, and I feel like they're for everybody, not just kids. And I feel like that's kind of the thing I want to convey, is storytelling that's for all ages. And it's like, you don't need to be like, I feel like a lot of cartoons are made for children, so adults can't enjoy them. But my favorite cartoons that are out there are ones that are made for both adults and kids, that you can just kind of enjoy, like, I guess as a family is the best way to put it, but not necessarily in a family thing.
So what kind of cartoons are your favorites?
Oh boy. I like a lot of cartoons. I think my favorite example for a cartoon that's both for children and adults is Gravity Falls.
Haven't seen it.
It's very good. There are some moments where it's like, okay, this is a kid's cartoon, but for the most part, it's just very good. And yeah.
And where do you find that?
It was on Disney XD. They just released a DVD box set like maybe 6 months ago or so, maybe more. I've lost all track of time since starting to work at Otis. it all blends together. So it's anywhere from 6 months to a year ago, I think.
Pretty soon she's gonna think 2016 wasn't that long ago.
I already think that. I feel like the same person, which I don't know if that is bad on me.
So that's something that's currently produced though, like it's still coming out.
No, it finished coming out actually in 2016, I believe. It stopped airing. It like the final episodes aired actually in February of 2016, so probably exactly like 2 or 3 years ago at this point. I can't remember. I think it was February 15th or 16th. I don't know.
Okay.
And does your interest in animation extend to like possibly doing video games, like getting into
absolutely.
that field?
Yeah, when I was in school, I was actually studying. What got me into my web and multimedia major was that I started going into this kind of like game development major. And I took a lot of game development classes actually, but then I ended up kind of finishing up on more of a physical coding thing. So I made a lot of like robots and stuff, is the best way of putting it. So.
And then you ended up studying web and multimedia.
Yeah.
So how does that fit into the animation work?
It doesn't.
Okay.
So this is the story of that, is that, and this is like the worst reason to change your major ever, and it was a mistake in hindsight. But like, because I didn't know what I was doing career-wise, my mind was like, go for the thing that's the most lucrative in the meantime. So like web like design and web development stuff is incredibly lucrative if you get the right jobs. But I don't know, I haven't done anything with that. So it was kind of, it's not really like where I'm passionate, but it's a skill set I have, so I can like make my own portfolio website and stuff, which is cool. But yeah.
But it's not something you would see yourself like going to look for a job in that industry, or?
I thought it was, but like instead I ended up baristaing because I feel like it's somewhere that I thrive. It's more creative when you're a barista. Like there's definitely like limitations and stuff, but I feel like there's a lot of creative outlet in pouring latte art. There's just something that's so satisfying about that and learning that skill set. So.
And if you play it right too, it's a good way to make connections so that you can always kind of have your eye on, you can always have your eye on what you want to do in the future, but and continue to make those connections, talk to customers, talk to people, and not be miserable with what you're doing in the meantime to sort of like pay your rent.
Exactly. Yeah. I was gonna say something and now I forgot.
Was it about working in web design, or
no
creativity of baristaing?
It was creativity and baristaing. There was one thing Austin said that triggered a thought, and then it just left as soon as it came.
Making connections with people?
Connections, yes. That was it. Thank you. Like I have drawn multiple times, like I bring my like drawing stuff and I draw at the cafe when I'm not working. And since customers like know me as a barista, they'll come up and be like, whoa, what are you doing? That's so cool. So that's kind of like making connections in a way. Yeah. And I've had people like ask me to draw them stuff and they're like, oh, I'll pay you. But those have all kind of fallen through for one reason or another. I don't know why. I think one of them wanted something on a time limit and then I was going out of town. So...
Has illustration and art always been important to you?
Oh, absolutely. I've been drawing since I was about 10 years old. I don't know what triggered me into drawing. It was probably video games because I played a lot of video games growing up. But I've just been drawing and I like made friends who all did drawing. And it was kind of like, with the internet especially, there's this website called DeviantArt where people share all their artwork. So that's kind of where I started, was just sharing artwork with like random people on the internet. Do
you still have your art on DeviantArt?
Yes and no. I have my accounts from like, I have my account from when I was like 10 up on there still. And then I have my account that I remade from when I was 17. And then I haven't really posted anything since I was 17 on there. So that's
what about Instagram? Do you use Instagram as a way to get your stuff out there?
I do. I made an art-specific Instagram, and then I stopped posting to it and instead started posting art to my main Instagram. So, I don't know.
What are some of your favorite hashtags to use? Do you have any hashtags that you sort of tap into to connect to a larger group of people?
I always forget to use hashtags actually, so that's kind of funny. I'm very versed in the internet, obviously.
I'm just learning with
Yeah.
this. Like I actually was really late to Instagram and kind of learning that people were using hashtags to sort of like group their things with interests. So like one that I started following, and this was just because I would go around San Francisco and see these posters that were done by this person. They were kind of like they would put their art up on like telephone poles or wherever, newspaper stands, stuff like that. And then under the bottom, it said hashtag queer art. And so I started following that, and I realized that that would connect to like queer artists all over the world that would do like hashtag queer arts. So then I started following other ones that were like kind of like that. But I thought, I guess, for people who have been doing Instagram for a long time, they're like, yeah, that's old news, but I'm actually just learning about this.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So you don't have a hashtag that you use. Do you have an IG handle that we could share with everybody so they can see your art?
Oh boy.
You don't have to say yes to that.
I mean, I would say yes, but like it's my personal Instagram mixed with my art. So I feel like a lot of people would see me being a fool in my like real life versus it's not very professional is my point. It's just me having a good time, I guess.
Depends. If you're open to it, we'll list it in the show notes.
Okay.
She's got some time to decide, listeners. So you're sitting on the edge of your seats. I know.
Oh boy.
Well, we know you are loving some art. Are there other things you do outside of coffee for fun?
It's mostly just art and hanging out with my friends.
Do you live in Boulder or Lafayette or where?
I live in Boulder currently. I'm kind of in this like limbo right now. So I'm living at my folks' house right now. I don't have to pay rent, which is like the best thing. So I'm saving up, and my eventual goal is to move to California, where kind of that animation industry is. So
what part of California?
So probably around the LA area, like Pasadena or somewhere. But it's expensive there, so I'm trying to figure out that situation and who I can move with, stuff like that.
Do you have other friends that are California bound?
One of my best friends, Kimmy, lives in California. She lives in Laguna because she's going to the LCAD, which is the Laguna College of Art and Design. And then my friend Riley was living out there, but then she moved to Utah and is now going to school in Utah. But she wants to go back to California eventually too. So she's from California, I should say too. So
have you ever lived outside of Colorado other than being in Minneapolis? Like, were you born here?
I was born in California.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was born in Los Angeles. So I'm actually from there. So
and then somehow your family made it to Boulder.
Yeah, my dad went to CU back in the day. And then my parents were living in California for a while, and then he liked it so much that we moved. Well, they moved out here. I wasn't.
You weren't part of that decision.
I was not part of that decision. I was just a wee bab. So
you grew up in Boulder.
Yes.
And then you went away to school for undergrad at Minneapolis College of Art and Design.
Mm-hmm.
Did you look at a lot of colleges of art and design?
I did, actually. I applied to a handful of places. I went to a pre-college program after graduating high school, and that was at the Ringling College of Art and Design.
Isn't that in Sarasota?
It is in Sarasota.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So I went to a pre-college program there, and I was planning on actually going there for college, and that was one of the colleges I applied to. But then I actually ended up going to the Minneapolis College of Art and Design because at the time my partner was living in Minneapolis. So
easy to make that decision.
Yeah.
So is the Minneapolis College of Art and Design near the museum, the Walker Art Museum?
Oh, it's right next to it. No, it's not. The Walker Art, it's next to the MIA, which is the Minneapolis Institute. Or I don't know, the MIA. It's a museum, but then the Walker Art Museum is about like 10 minutes away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that their sculpture garden with
so nice.
The spoon and the cherry. If you've ever seen that, it's an iconic piece of art. They have a bunch of beautiful things, and it's the way that they have them arranged on the lawn that I love so much. You don't see a lot of beautiful sculpture gardens out here in Colorado, do you? I've never seen one.
I've never seen one either.
It's very barren here, so there's not lots of trees. It's a lot of prairie grass, and so by the time, like at the Arvada Art Center, when they put out a bunch of sculptures, it looks more like a yard sale than a sculpture garden. If you've ever seen a sculpture garden somewhere else where it's integrated with plants and there are nooks and like you can kind of wander and then discover the art piece by piece. Do you know what I mean? Whereas here, you just look out and you see it all at once, and you almost like need a moment with each piece to fully, I feel like, experience it the way I want to experience it.
Yeah.
I feel overwhelmed when I look at too much art at one time. Kind of like when you're in these museums in Europe where it's floor to ceiling, just art. I need a break. I need just a few pieces at a time. Have you ever been overcome by art in that way?
I feel like a lot I am. I was actually just visiting family in Argentina back in December, and we went to, I forget the name, we went to an art museum in Buenos Aires, and it was just so much art. And like you would go into this room and there was this one artist we looked at who I'm forgetting the name of right now, but his art was very intense. So it was like going into this room of just this really intense art, and then it was one after the other and one after the other. And it was just kind of like, okay, I need to sit down for a second.
Yeah, we call that museum head. When your head gets too full of museum and you max out.
Yeah.
Nothing else is going to get in. If you're watching us on YouTube, Tater's in the background, my little beagle.
Just snoozing away.
Can you see him?
I
Austin?
can. Yeah, I saw his head was up a minute ago.
Yeah. So, if you want to see a cute little beagle, check us out on YouTube. All right. So I kind of remember, we've had conversations, so many I can't remember them all.
Yeah.
I kind of remember we discussed learning to skateboard together.
Yeah, because I have my skateboard shirt that says, every day I dream I wish I was wearing it now, but it says every day I dream about skateboarding. It's one of my favorite shirts. It has a little illustration of a guy chasing a skateboard. I've wanted to learn how to skateboard for so long. I did it when I was like little, but as I've grown old with age, I have become afraid of things that I can potentially get hurt by.
I know.
Like
and
skateboarding and skiing.
I'm right there with you about the skateboarding. And so stay tuned, folks. We're going to try to make our skateboarding dreams come true. Cam and I.
And you guys both have health insurance, right?
We do. I do. Do you?
Runs out soon, because I'm under my parents' health insurance, but in less than in 4 months that won't be the case anymore.
Okay, so we have 4 months to become straight skateboarders.
Time limit.
I have to get a skateboard. I don't have one, so I guess we're gonna work on that.
Yeah,
it's getting nicer. The weather's gonna get nicer. Days are getting longer.
Oh, they are. That's true.
Do you know how to skateboard, Austin?
I do not. I do know how to ski, and I love skiing. So yeah.
Skiing's great. I love skiing.
And I do have health insurance right now. Thank you.
Yay! It's important. We went snowboarding and skiing yesterday up at Copper.
Oh my God.
I know. If you can see my face, it's super sunburned. I get sunburned here more than anywhere because you look at the weather and they say it's going to be cloudy and 20 all day. And then you get over there and it's 40 and sunny all day. I'm not complaining about 40 and sunny. That's perfect for me. That's perfect conditions to be on the slopes all day, but it caught me unawares without sunscreen. So anyway, so let's see. When I'm hanging out in the coffee shop, the thing I notice most about Cam is that she is super into what she's doing, whatever it is that she's doing. She is not just giving it 110%. I think she's giving it 1,000%.
Oh,
she seems like she's super fussy about the grind and the pour. And then after she hands you the cup of coffee that truly she's done her best with it and it is stellar, then she goes back to the machine and still is tinkering. So you seem to me to be a perfectionist. Is that how you think of yourself?
I definitely have perfectionistic things about me, qualities, I guess. Like, it's the same way with my illustration. I'm like, I get caught on illustrations because like one part won't be perfect, and then I'll spend like hours and hours and hours, which is just kind of the nature of the beast. But it often is something that kind of hinders me even because I worry too much about every detail being perfect. I feel like
how
in
often
coffee,
do you
there's-
remake, like with coffee, how often will you remake somebody's drink before handing it to them, or re-pour the shots? Do you do that very often, or do you just kind of note it and move on and like make small adjustments as you go?
I make small adjustments as I go. Coffee with grinders, our grinder especially, is like very finicky. So it's weighing the output, timing the shots. Our machine is with volumetrics here, so it's very different from how I was trained originally, which is we would always have 25-second shots, give or take, and we would adjust the dose. But I find that I don't remake people's drinks very often unless I make the wrong drink, which will be like, oh, maybe they'll ask for like an alternative milk and I'll space it, or like it won't have been written down. So that's typically when I remake drinks. But I like to think that I do a good enough job that I don't need to remake a drink too often.
What kind of grinder do you guys
definitely
do? Do you know the brand of the grinder you guys use?
Yes. It's a Malkonig. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's actually broken right now, which is like a hoot and a half. Not really. So we've been grinding our espresso at an espresso grind of like 1 out of our EK grinder.
I've been there.
Yeah.
It sucks when the grinder's down.
The grinder's down. We've been trying to get it fixed. We were supposed to get a new one on Tuesday. It's Thursday now. And what I heard before I left was that they're supposedly coming today with something or other. But
grinders have gotten so much better in the days that since I started in the coffee industry. It used to be, it was like there was that chamber, and like especially if it was like impatient barista, they would just grind it all at once, fill up that chamber, and roll with it through their shift, which is not a good way to do it. No. And you should be, you know. So now they're always just like instantaneous grinding to the shot, and you don't have to change your grind nearly as often as you used to have to. I mean, there was times that Cafe Driatti with the old school grinder, you know, I'm sure they don't have that now, but back in the day where you would have to pour somebody's shot like 3 or 4 times and adjust in between, and it would take forever. But I don't think that's really the case with most coffee shops these days. I think that it's kind of like they're steadier somehow. The grind doesn't change quite as much as it used to.
Well, tell us what inspires you about working in the coffee industry. And then also tell us, like, if you find something particularly frustrating about it. Like, how do you feel about coffee as a job?
Oh, man. It's a love and hate relationship for sure. There are some days where I'm like, I hate this. This is my least favorite thing. Why am I doing this? But, like, I earnestly do really like making coffee. Like, again, it's just, there's something about it with creative agency that's satisfying. Just in making like the espresso perfect, in making the milk texture perfect and the temperature perfect. Like, it's all so specific, but in that sense, it's like a challenge. But it's also like, at this point for me, it's muscle memory. So it's just really satisfying to know I'm doing a good job without like not putting in effort, but it's like, just it's a skill I have now versus something I'm constantly like working really hard at and then freaking out, being like, oh, it's not good enough, which I obviously still do, but it's much more second nature now.
It's funny when you get to that plateau of anything that you're learning where you're like, oh, I made it through the first steps, you know, like I've arrived at the first big goal. Then you can kind of chill out and just truly enjoy like the little bit of mastery that you have with it. Yeah. And then that is an art, no matter whatever you're doing, right? Hitting that first plateau.
Yeah.
Do you see like future goals in coffee ahead of you, like different things you'd like to achieve?
I don't know. Coffee culture is so interesting to me. Because I know that there's like coffee competitions and stuff, and like I don't know the names, but it's like coffee nationals or something where like you go, it's like this giant throwdown where like people like test your beans, test your like everything about the thing. And it's this competition. I don't know, that at the old place I worked, they traveled to these extravagant, or maybe they're not extravagant maybe, but they traveled to these competitions and they were like a really big deal. So that side of it kind of fascinates me. But I don't think it's something I could see myself doing necessarily. Because I don't really know what I want to do when it comes down to it. I just kind of am going with the flow and doing what I want when I want it.
You do kind of have to be like to do the competitions. It's you also have to have an element of like a show person, because they set it up. I mean, you know, they choose their music, they choose their outfits, they choose like the specialty drink they want to do, and it's got to be like you're basically like write your own little like show to give to the judges. So if you're a person who enjoys performing in that way, then you might excel in that. But it doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, like the best barista in the world might not be good at that if they don't, you know, if they don't really get off on showing in that way. But I do think it's, you know, it's definitely helpful for the industry that there are people who are into that and they're really demonstrating, you know, what direction the industry is going in and kind of like pushing the boundaries on that. I did it myself and I failed spectacularly because I wasn't into that part of it. Like I was definitely into improving my skill, but I didn't really care to put on a big show about it. Although I respect that there are people who are really good at doing that.
Do you think you'll do it again, Austin?
I would rather, I think at this point I would rather support one of my coworkers who was really into doing it and help them with their practicing and help them hone their presentation. So I think I would rather be behind the scenes supporting somebody than actually being the person that was up there competing. I've done that once and it was good. And I would recommend anybody join their local competition one time just to do it. But I couldn't see myself wanting to push much past like the local competition and go into the, you know, national or regional or world or what, you know, there's even world competitions. You can go to Israel or wherever they happen to be doing it that year. But certainly if there was someone who had a verb for it that I worked with, I'd love to support a coworker who had that goal in mind.
That makes me wonder if we have anybody in this Denver area who has won a competition. I don't know. I haven't run across a barista yet who's into the competitions. I'll have to check that out. Like see if I can figure that out. So just this morning when I was getting my beautiful coffee, I discovered that Cam's a mandolin player. I'm curious how you picked that instrument. Tell us about your mandolin and if you're taking lessons and what you're doing there.
So when I was still doing freelance work before I worked at Otis, I don't know how I picked out the mandolin. I was like, I wanted to play something that not many people played, but was still like a stringed instrument. I don't know. There's some kind of special snowflake quality there, I guess. But I just wanted to play something that was smaller than a guitar because I don't know why. I think I didn't like the claw I had with a guitar. And now I have a claw, but it's a small claw. But there's something, and I didn't want to play ukulele.
What?
I know. I don't know why. I should rephrase. I do want to play ukulele because I always want to like play every instrument ever, but I wanted to play something different. I was actually working when I got my first mandolin. I was working in 2016 at the Weather Vane Theater in New Hampshire.
I was with you in Minneapolis, but I don't know about the New Hampshire part.
I know.
Okay, we're going to come back to that.
We'll come back to that.
Okay.
But that was when I got my first mandolin, and my dad was visiting me while I was doing that theater internship, and we went to the music shop, and I think on the fly I was like, I think I want to buy a mandolin, and he was like, well, okay, I guess you're buying a mandolin, and I was like, yeah, here I go, and I bought a mandolin. So
you didn't.
And how much does one cost?
They're pricey.
Really? You can't get a cheap one?
Define cheap.
50.
No, you can't get like a $50 mandolin. No.
Okay. Well, just for those of you ukulele haters out there, you can get a $50 ukulele.
It's true.
Okay, go ahead. So you bought a really nice one, huh?
Yeah, I have a new one. It's an F-style mandolin. It's the entire body is made out of like a solid wood. It's not It's not like
the one I have.
The one you have.
If you want to see
it on
brought it. YouTube, I'll show you. This is a ukulele that was given to me by my cousin Eddie Wayne, and Cam took one look at it, and she said it's an A shape. That's what this means. Hers is an F shape, and how is that? It's something different on the top.
It has a little, so it's not symmetrical like this one is. It kind of comes up and forms a little curly Q here.
Okay.
And the different shape. So this one will have more of a like.
It's not in tune.
Tinny. It's not in tune. It has more of like a, like, I guess, tinny sound, whereas the F style is kind of softer in how it sounds.
Okay.
At least that's what I tell myself. Watch me be wrong.
So you've had it for a few years.
No, well, yeah, I had my old mandolin. So fun story. I had my old mandolin until a little more than a year ago, and then it fell over when I was practicing one day. I set it aside because I was doing something, and it fell over on top of a Sharpie that happened to be on the ground, and it snapped the neck perfectly with how it fell on the Sharpie. So I didn't play mandolin up until maybe a month and a half ago, because that's when I bought my new mandolin, because I finally had saved up enough for it.
So is it similar? It's still an F style?
I stuck with the F style because I like the F styles more. But it was my new one is like very nice. So I'm very excited about it. And that's my story.
All right.
About the mandolin.
Are you taking lessons or are you teaching yourself?
I'm teaching myself.
And how are you doing that?
I have a book of chords and I just practice playing the chords.
Are there jams that allow mandolin players that you know of? I know of one.
What
I can think of one.
What? Austin, tell us.
Well, I remember, I was a big fan of REM, like way back in high school, which probably dates me a whole lot. But Peter Buck started playing the mandolin and did that in that song, "Losing My Religion."
Oh, that has a mandolin in it.
Yeah. Go back and watch the video.
Okay.
Oh.
And all throughout that album, there was some throughout that album.
Huh.
What was yours, Jodie?
Well, I think you thought I said the word was band, right? What bands have a mandolin? I was asking her if she knew about jams, because jamming is a great way to learn an instrument. If you don't know, people, here's the thing. I don't know how to read music. I mean, I'm learning, but I don't know how to read music. And I was 43 when I started playing ukulele. I got on YouTube, watched a couple YouTube videos, like taught myself a few chords, and then headed to a jam. And you will not know everything that they show you at a jam. You'll know 50% maybe if you're lucky, but your ear kicks in where your own hands fail you, because you will have a group of people supporting you, playing on the beat and playing the music that is supposed to be coming out of your ukulele in your ear. And very quickly, you go from being a person who's at 50% to 100% person who's helping the next 50%er. And it is beyond your brain's ability to comprehend what's happening. It just happens in your hands and in your body. And it's the most magical, amazing, addictive experience to go jam with people. So there's a jam at the Boulder Elks Club on Friday nights. This is hilarious that there is an Elks Club in Boulder County. As you know, like all the rich white people are coming into Boulder and terrorizing it. And there is an old Elks Club there that is kind of tucked away behind this senior retirement village. And they have a jam Friday nights for like 2.5 hours with the kindest people who play guitar. There's a couple mandolins. There's a lot of ukuleles. And we even have a woman who plays the washboard. Yeah, and a harmonica player. But anyway,
that's awesome.
It's a great group of people, and they have a songbook, and you just show up with your instrument and sit next to somebody and just do the best you can. And it all turns out. We play and sing together every week. So, I mean, there's stuff like this in your community probably. And if not, there's a ton of resources online and lots of good people who are creating jams online for you to participate in. But jamming is the way to do it. That's how to learn. Yeah. So maybe you'll show up at the Elks.
Perhaps I will.
With your mandolin. I'm bringing my tap shoes next time I go. I've already decided. I'm going to clog for them.
That's awesome. That's so fun.
Music is fun.
Music is the best.
It is.
I love it.
It's my favorite. So, okay, let's get back to New Hampshire. You were in New Hampshire on a theater internship?
Yes. So I needed an internship for school, and being in the I don't know what I'm doing or what I want to do with my life phase, I was like, I'm going to do a theater internship. This is in the midst of me being like animation, web and multimedia, game design, whatever. So I went and I did this theater internship where I was the master electrician. So I worked with the lighting designer, and I would just run the lighting for these shows, and I like would rig all the lights and all that fun stuff. But that was like learning on the fly because it was something I'd never done before. So it was very much just learning how to do things. And I was studying all my like kind of robotics stuff at the time, so I was able to like understand the stuff about the lights and whatnot.
And this was when you were in Minneapolis that you took this Segway internship?
Well, she ended up in New Hampshire.
Yeah, so...
Right.
Oh, from Minneapolis.
Right.
Yes. So, yeah, so how it happened was that my dad's brother lives in New Hampshire, and they like support this theater. So I was like scrambling to find an internship, and it like was one that my dad offhandedly mentioned. So I just like sent a message I applied and I sent a message to the theater, and then I got my internship just like that, which was really nice. So yeah, I don't know. It just kind of happened.
How long were you there? Just like a summer?
Yeah, it was just like a repertory theater. We did like, I think it was 8 shows in 3 months.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. We opened 3 shows in 1 week, which was, was a lot.
That seems like a lot to manage.
Yeah, it was very intense, for sure. And I don't know how many other theaters do that, but I'm sure it's a ton with the alternating repertory.
Arvada does that, and it's nothing short of miraculous watching their set design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it would be like doing set changeovers like every other night, just so that like the things would be, you know, in the right places and stuff.
And then you have to have collaborative efforts from everybody to create a set that can work in a myriad of ways for 3 different shows.
Yeah.
Right. So that the things move the way they should, that they move the way they need to for this show, but they're also like flippable and convertible for another show.
Yeah.
So that you're not triplicating. Is that a word? Triplicating, like duplicating, triplicating?
It is now.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. Efforts. I just think set design is one of those things that's fascinating when I see a great repertory company doing it, like, using things multiple ways. I don't know how they can be that creative. It seems like a big challenge to me. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But you decided you didn't want to do that for reals.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Well, so there's a big robotics competition here in Boulder every year.
There is.
Do you ever go to that or
No.
participate in it?
I do not.
Do you know the details? I kind of am foggy on it, but I've heard my husband talk about it. I think they design things that go across the res. Is that right?
Oh, interesting. I've never heard of it. So
y'all, you're gonna have to read the show notes. I'm so foggy on this, but I feel like it happens in May, and it's called robotics something. And whoever designs the best robot powered thing like wins the award. It's a pretty big deal because there's a lot of engineers in this area, aerospace companies and stuff like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So you don't know how to play ukulele?
No.
But you want to? Maybe. All right. Well, we have a big announcement. I have a big announcement.
Oh.
I've been talking with the community outreach coordinator over at Otis, and we are going to have a ukulele jam at Otis after hours. So it starts, I think our first one is March 14th, and then we'll be doing them monthly. And it's going to be for everybody who wants to learn. Like the first 30 minutes is just learning a few chords. And then the next little bit of it is playing some simple songs with those chords you just learned. And then later, people who are more advanced can come in and we'll play more complicated songs to finish up the evening. All right. You going to learn to play ukulele now?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or at least bring your mandolin.
I'll bring my mandolin and I'll throw everybody off with
perfect.
their ukuleles.
We need one of those. Okay, well, before we let you go and get serious about your coffee shops, we have to talk about the shirt you're wearing.
Oh, yeah.
Can you, because you wear this shirt a lot.
It's my favorite shirt.
And sort of lift yourself up so they can see it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it means, this is what I see, end gender.
End gender.
Okay, tell us what that means to you.
So, this is a very deep topic for me personally, but
we want the depth. If you can handle it, we can handle it.
So I don't know. Gender has always been something that's been in a constant flux for me personally. And I think I find gender and gender roles to be kind of silly in a way. I don't know. That's the wrong word to say they're silly, but it's just for me personally, it's this piece of identity that I feel like with the binary of male and female, it's so much more of a spectrum than that, where you have this kind of non-binary that exists within that topic. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like to say that people can only be male or female is kind of limiting in that sense, because people are all unique and, you know, identify in different ways and are different than just those. And yeah, I'm bad at like talking about this, but yeah.
So is this something you've always understood, that gender is not binary?
Oh, absolutely not.
Like from when you were a small person, you understood this?
No.
When did it happen?
I would have to say when I was in college. It was kind of, well, actually, no, it was when I was kind of 17. And that was kind of around the time where I was like, I don't really identify as like within these constructs, but I am like a person who I just don't like labels, and it's just so complicated. So at the time I was getting really frustrated because I didn't understand these feelings I was having. Mm-hmm. But then I went to college and I made a friend who identified as non-binary and used they and them pronouns. And it completely opened this world to me and gave me a new understanding of these things, because it just, to me, was like, you're either male or female up until that point. And like, I didn't necessarily agree with that, but I didn't understand anything beyond that. Yeah, but I developed a community of like a bunch of non-binary people and just this transgender community and LGBT community. So it's just, yeah.
And do you prefer the pronouns they and them?
Yeah, actually that's how I was going by. Well, that is not going by. That's like what I've used for like since my sophomore year of college. And then I kind of came back to Colorado and I kind of lost that network of people. So I kind of was like, I kind of regressed in a sense where I became very afraid of everybody because I didn't know who I could trust within my Colorado community. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's very interesting in that sense. Just to kind of identify that like defensive mechanism almost in myself.
Seems like a lot of work. You know, it seems like a lot of work because we have such a, as a culture, we have such a limited understanding of these things. Like if everybody would just take the responsibility for understanding it's a continuum, mm-hmm. then it would be like, hi, my name's Cam, right? Like my name's different than yours. I'm Jodie, you're Cam. Yeah. Like, it would be a simple conversation. Yeah. But it sounds like it almost becomes burdensome for you to say they is what I'm looking for. Yeah, because a lot of people don't understand that, like, it's very hard for people to understand that there can be another whole, like, it's again with just like the spectrum thing, because it's not just this one identification. It's like so much more than this one identity. And I feel like that also can kind of make a lot of people uncomfortable mm-hmm. because they don't understand it. So, yeah, I'm completely losing my train of thought here.
Well, I think the other thing is it's like, and correct me if you don't agree, but I feel like using that, using different pronouns and kind of challenging others to use people's, different pronouns is a challenge to people to not only try to pigeonhole you, but also not to try to pigeonhole others, and to like just kind of let go of that idea that you really need to, like, upon first meeting someone, sort of categorize them one way or another. Mm-hmm. And I even see it here a lot with with children in San Francisco, that the parents are kind of allowing them, freedom to express themselves however they feel like they would like to without subscribing one way or another. And then you accidentally misgender them because you've grown up, and and then you realize upon doing that, oh, I'm assuming just off of, just first meeting this person and looking at them in whichever category I want my brain to put them in, that I need to, stop and look at that and say, hey, like, let's get to know this person first, rather than like trying to decide what they are, at first introduction.
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely something that you have to like make an effort to learn and respect in other people. I've just gotten into the habit that when I meet new people, I just refer to them by they and them pronouns until they tell me otherwise. Because I feel like that's much more inclusive and it is less othering to people. And I feel like that kind of makes that conversation easier for a person who might identify by a different gender. It makes them more comfortable to kind of engage in that conversation, and it makes them feel more like they're in a safe space. Whereas, I don't know, because I know that in me personally, like, it's a very uncomfortable topic for me to bring up. Like I was saying, when I moved back, I became very afraid of like talking about this thing. But it's just delicate, I guess. And I feel like when you identify not like what is not the societal norm, it can be very scary to like come out to other people, essentially. Because you don't know how people react. They could seem like the most open-minded person, and then they can completely just not understand. So.
And then it's personal, because this is not some political debate that, you could talk about external to you. This is your life that they just said, no, I'm not willing to believe that or listen to you and understand your truth as truth. Right? They've just told it's such rejection that no wonder it's hard. But here's what's fascinating, I think. Like, I identify as female, but I'm not a normal woman. I'm not normal. I mean, I got married by myself for $30 in a courthouse without my husband there, because you can do that in Boulder, Colorado. And so when people meet me and they know I have a husband, they want to project all of this. Oh, you must be very proud of your marriage. Tell me how long you've been married. That kind of stuff on me. And I don't have any pride about my marriage. It was not like a goal. It's just a happy thing that happened. Like having your friendship is a happy thing that has happened in my life. But like, I don't wear that as a badge of honor like so many women do. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
It comes with like a $20,000 ring that I also don't wear, like that kind of thing. And so there are ways I feel like all of us have to walk it away from the edges. Even if you do identify with your female organs and you want to call yourself a woman, like I'm still not that kind of womanly woman that's going to dye her hair, put makeup on, like that. And that doesn't mean have never dyed my hair. It doesn't mean I've never worn makeup. I love Halloween makeup. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but we're all on a continuum on some level. And so I feel like nobody should have to explain themselves and where they are. Like, we're all on that continuum. And if you're at the edge, that's great. We've been recognizing you for that for centuries. Right. But there's all kinds of stuff in between. And I love these people. If you're one of these people, I'm challenging you to think about this. If you really believe that a person's body defines their gender, then how do you account for hermaphrodites and people with ambiguous genitals? Those people are everywhere. So then what do? Like, deciding for that person turns out to be the wrong thing to do most of the times. Like, unless you just 50-50 chance and you get it right. Like, I feel like you should just let people be who they are in their bodies and let them figure it out. And let's all just be okay with that. I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. I have noticed this sweatshirt. Cam wears it all the time, and I've wanted to talk to her about it. But I really appreciate you going into it today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really happy to have talked about it. And when you were sitting here the whole time, I swear to God, I thought the sweatshirt said Fender, like the guitar, and that was what I was expecting we were going to talk about. And it was like such a nice surprise to be able to delve into something that's so interesting and important for everybody to be talking about right now. So
absolutely,
Thank you.
So the word for those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, it says gender, but it's written in like white font and then not white font, like transparent font. So you end up seeing the word end inside the word gender. And so that's the message of it, is just to, quit defining people that way.
Mm-hmm.
Or at the very least, define them on the continuum where they feel like they are.
Yeah.
Right. It's a matter of respect. It's like learning someone's name. It's really no different than that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. Well, any final thoughts on that? You guys? We're just all smiles at this point.
We're just all smiling. It's just a good time.
All right. Well, back to coffee.
Back to coffee.
We always like to end our show finding out what your 3 favorite coffee shops are of all time. So you want to reflect on that a little bit?
Well, I'm biased because I first, again, like I was saying, my first coffee job was at Spy House Coffee Roasters in Minneapolis. And it still is probably one of my favorite coffee places to this day. I was a customer there for like 3 or 4 years before I applied after I graduated to work there. And in both being a customer and an employee there, it's just a really nice environment. And I think they do a really good job with their craft. They've been around for, I think, 18 or 19 years now. It was, when I was working there, it was 16. And that was, I don't know, I've lost all track of time. But that's definitely, I think, my all-time favorite coffee place, just because
you consider that your home in Minneapolis? Like, is that the first place you go if you go back?
It sure is, yeah. I was visiting my friends back in Minneapolis probably about a year ago from today, and like the first thing I did was go to Spy House and get a coffee, and I went to my old shop and I saw all my old coworkers, and it was just really fun.
Were your regulars still there too?
Yeah, they still go, which is nuts. Yeah, wow, I haven't thought about the regulars there in a long time. But
you'll be amazed when you get as old as I am. Like, I still go back to the coffee shop where I worked in North Carolina, and this is, I got my job there 19 years ago to start. Some of the same customers, maybe some of them are listening, who knows? But some of the same people are still, that's where their life is. That's where they chose to make their forever home, and some of them are still there. So maybe even 20 years from now, you'll go back and see some of the same faces much later.
For sure.
Then you'll have to remember their name.
Good luck.
I hope I remember most of our regulars' names.
Or at least you remember their drinks, right?
Yeah, I remember their drinks.
That's
for sure.
That's just as good if you say that to a regular customer. I know you're a cortado with whole milk. You're like, oh yeah, that's my name around here. That's good. All right, so that's your first one. What's your second one?
Yeah, I'm probably, oh man, I'm gonna go off and just name all Minneapolis places, I guess.
Okay.
I think my next favorite one would be 5 Watt Coffee in Minneapolis. They really care about their craft as well, and they have a really fun menu. I don't know. Last time I went there, it was just the one shop, and it's very small, and they just have a concise small menu, and you just know what you're getting. It's great. And then maybe I'll branch out and say something that's not Minneapolis. I don't know. I can't think of anything. Another place is Canteen in Minneapolis, which is just where I would go to do my illustration work with my best friend. And we would just go work there. And it was a really nice space to work. And they had good coffee. And it was just a great time. So.
Well,
yeah.
Sounds like we need to take a road trip to Minneapolis.
I know.
For all the fine coffee.
Definitely. I'm going there like in a week and a half, so.
I used to spend like a week in July in Minneapolis. I loved it up there in the summer.
Oh, it's so nice in the summer.
It's beautiful. And there are lakes and lakes and lakes. And they're not kidding about it being land of 10,000 lakes.
I hear they have a really good Pride there too. A friend of mine goes to Minneapolis all the time, and he said it was one of the most fun Pride celebrations he's ever been to.
Yeah, for sure. I've never been to the Pride myself, but I've had my friends who've gone, And I've only heard good things about it, so. Yeah.
When is it? Is it in like June or July?
I think
Yeah.
so. I think it's in the summertime, which is what tripped my
most
thought.
Pride
Yeah.
events aren't they?
They're usually either in June or October.
June or October.
Yeah, a lot of the like smaller cities will do October, and then like the bigger cities tend to do June, I think.
I think Denver does it in June.
Yeah, that would
Like
make sense.
mid-June.
Like New York, San Francisco does it in June as well. But then like I know when I was in Raleigh, Durham, that area, they did it in October.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, any final thoughts, folks, from either of you? Anything else that needs saying that hasn't been said?
No, I think I've said most of what's in my tiny little brain.
It's not tiny at all.
Oh,
we know better. Austin, you got any more questions?
No, I don't think I do, but I as usual, want to thank you for joining us today. It was really great to meet you, Cam.
Yeah, it was great to meet you too.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you too for listening, and tell us if you know a barista or coffee industry expert that needs to be featured on our show. Send us your big ideas to our email address, info@baristaunfiltered.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks all to our subscribers, all of you guys on YouTube. We're getting close to that goal, so keep subscribing if you haven't already subscribed.
Subscribe, YouTube, subscribe, please.
Yes. We've got some podcast patrons through Patreon. So thank you guys for your support. And if anyone else wants to join, you can find the links on our homepage of our website, baristaunfiltered.com. You can donate to the podcast in any amount, or you can schedule it however works for your budget. As we wrap up, I'm Jodie Lee.
And I'm Austin Miller.
And we have with us.
And I'm Cam.
Y'all be good. Stay caffeinated, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.